I think Preston Carnival has got its own uniqueness. Like most other carnivals, they've got their own uniqueness. I think what I think is important here is that the resources is put in to make sure that certain amount of skills are transferred to the local groups so that they in turn can get a much better appreciation for making costumes. I think it's great to see the various groups, as you can see over here, making their costumes. Obviously, my job as a consultant is just to come down and make sure that they're doing things properly. I'm very strong on structures, in terms of my background as a mechanical engineer, so I would normally advise quite a lot on that. That's quite an area. But in terms of Preston Carnival as a carnival, I think it's really, really good. I mean, obviously it's small, but relatively speaking, that is. But the quality of work, I think, has increased tremendously since I first came down. And it's good to see people taking on board some of the key things about good quality, good designs, good structures, good backpacks, and so on. I think, obviously there's issues with money at this moment in time. Maybe Carnival is not the highest priority, but the reality is that it does require funding to make it happen. I think the Arts Council themselves, in terms of support to Carnival, has got a more diverse policy to make sure that smaller groups can now apply for funding and and get funding to do things. I think it's good when the council also get involved. Certainly in Leeds, the council supports Carnival quite in a very big way. And I do believe here in Preston it's probably not quite what they would like it to be, but I think that certainly is an important element in terms of the whole community, and so I think it'd be great if councils can be seen to be supporting Carnival. I think in terms of young people's involvement, if you look at the enthusiasm and the level of commitment in terms of dance rehearsals to make sure that on the day they've got a nice routine, clearly a lot of effort is put in there. And it's really great to see that level of activities and involvement. The rivalry between groups, whilst it can get a bit over the top, I think it's also healthy to have that kind of rivalry. Everybody wants to be the best, and quite rightly so. I think that should be encouraged. In terms of making costumes, I think it's good if you can get more young people to get involved with the process. But you can't just suddenly become an expert overnight. So it's important that people start on the grassroots in terms of just getting familiar with the materials and learning to put things together. And in time, that process will develop. I have to say that there is one of the groups here at Preston that I've been working with more closely for a very long time. And it's interesting to see how their skill level have increased. They're a lot more confident at doing a lot of things. So that is the way forward. It can't happen overnight. It just requires a longer period in terms of learn from one year after another year to what you can build on. So I think that particular process needs to continue in terms of support and making sure more young people get involved. But you say that, this group has got lots of young people involved, so it's good to see that. One of the key things about Carnival is this, right, that certainly it's a creative process, but there's also an element of it that says, there's a beginning and there's an end, and you can't change the end process. So there's a discipline of being able to create and meet those deadlines. Quite important lessons to be learned. You can make excuses, you can say, well, maybe next year I'll do better or whatever. But once that data's come and you haven't achieved or whatever, then that's a good learning process, and quite often, for example, my son, right, who is now very much following in the pattern in terms of designing, he spoke about the time when he had wonderful ideas, thought he had lots of time to complete it, and then cried on the day because he wasn't able to achieve what he set out to achieve. So I think that kind of learning process and the discipline involved in doing that is great. And a lot of kids, a lot of young people, do grow up and take those on board and move on to do other things, whether it be in the arts or in any other field.
Learning about the artwork, it's also an opportunity for people to share time together in an enjoyable environment. And, the discussions that go on while we're making things, it's all a learning process in life, So we end up, all sorts of things are discussed while people are making Carnival. And there's all sorts of things that get passed on and learnt about, So it's... it's a good learning
suppose it's a
process.
huge
Community,
social-
it is.
yeah,
It's a social thing.
aspect as
Yeah,
well.
that's it.
Wow.
Enjoy it because we do it year after year, even though it's hard work.
So how long have you been involved with the Preston groups then?
I've been involved nearly 20 years. So,
20 years.
yeah. I was also really lucky to be awarded an Arts Council fellowship to Trinidad to learn about Carnival.
Right.
So I went over to Trinidad for 6 weeks and on the International Fellowship Exchange, and absolutely fantastic. I mean, if I wasn't already hooked on Carnival, that reeled me in.
That seems
So, yeah.
good stuff.
And hopefully we've transferred some of the things that I learnt, and obviously we've got Hugh Bond and, you know, different skills that different people have. You know, it all comes together. Yeah. Brilliant.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's the King Piece for House and Harmony, and they're one of the main bands for Preston Carnival. They've been playing for many years, but they've gone down a slightly different route. They do their funding separately, so they've kind of gone off as an independent band, and they do a lot of touring and things, which is really good because it's kind of broadened the scope of Preston Carnival. It's not just Preston. You know, we get to go to Huddersfield and Leeds and things like that. So I've been commissioned to do that. So their theme is Under the Sea. So we went for the King of the Waves. So it's a sailfish with various various waves around it, and quite self-explanatory, really.
Cool.
It was fun to make, though.
Yeah. And how long did this take to make? Dare I ask?
Well, we're supposed to make it within about 15 days, but it's probably taken about 20 days. It's just the little bits that you don't realise. Quite a lot of the time you do something and then you realise it's wrong, so you have to, you don't just waste the time doing that, you have to undo it and then do it again, so it takes you 3 times as long to do one thing. But yeah, about 20 days. But it's good fun. I can think of worse things to do than stick sparkly bits on.
Yeah.
Although cutting the feathers in half was not fun.
That was
One thing that we probably should mention as well with all these costumes, it's one thing making something that's like a big, it has to break down as well so it can be toured. So this all comes apart, and all of the costumes that we made, they break down into little sections that can be taken on a bus or something like that. So,
So you
yeah.
have to be able to flat pack all this.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, some of it doesn't flat pack. But the fish comes away. The fish comes away like here, slots onto the backpack, and the backpack's separate. And each of these waves, they all come out from various bits like this, and then we use wire to pin them. If you saw Cubon drilling before, so that will locate there, and you'll put a pin in, and it will just stop it coming out, because there's a lot of motion when it's on the road, and a lot of jiggling. So when you make a piece, you've got to think about that aspect of it as well, and then you've got to think about the weight and the balance. So it was quite simple with the balance, because it's kind of like over his head things. But I'll show you the skull in a minute, and it's very top heavy. And sometimes you have to kind of just go with it, really. And if it's going to be slightly heavy, then it's going to be slightly heavy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to think about, and it's all really good fun. I really enjoy it.
See.
This is for a Blaze, that band that were in there, we were doing the butterflies for. So they're doing Day of the Dead. So we've got this big skull for them. goes onto the backpack. We've made all of this with insulation foam that you buy from, you know, B&Q.
Yeah.
It's quite good. It's all right. I have to put that. Use that to locate at the same time.
Gosh, he says all in all camera in one hand.
Yeah, it's a bit
There
of a
we go,
faff.
got it.
There we are. I'll just slide those down like that. There we go.
Amazing.
So that's him. He's all right when they stand up, and then he's going to have these arms that attach, and these are going to be on poles so he can move them and locate it. So he'll have a bamboo pole so he can wave and do whatever he wants to do. Like that. Oops. So this is one that's been really good fun to make. The structure was a bit complicated because the skull's a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. But once I got that done, it's just been sticking sparkly bits on really.
Yeah.
Which is great. So the idea is it's like a bobblehead. So he's going to be wearing a suit, you know, like a skeleton suit, and it'll be the legs, and we'll have to move around. Yeah. So this is a Blaze, the same man that was before. It's really nice. Like, you know, people work on different pieces, and somebody will be doing one thing, and you know, maybe sticking some sequins on something, and they don't necessarily know what it's going to be. And it's only like at the last week it all comes together and you see the whole band and everybody fits in, and you put one piece of costume with the other piece of costume and it all looks really good, but it's always to the last minute, and then it all just comes together and it looks great.